Oh man, I really hope I don't appear too red on camera, but if you can't tell, I'm pretty sunburnt right now. I was out at a concert, an outdoor concert. I don't like outdoor concerts. Unrelated to what we're talking about, just throwing it out there. It was kind of a punk rock concert, so I guess it does play into the theme of what we're talking about today. This is my Superman review slash discussion. This is going to be a freeform thing. I haven't prepared any notes. I'm kind of just coming out of a screening too. I watched it late at night. Again, I went to a concert, so I couldn't see it right away. And I. Okay. If you follow my channel, then you might realize a couple of things. I talk a lot about comic books, but I don't genuinely talk about a lot of comic book movies. The discourse just gets really annoying. And I don't want to be perceived as like another channel where I'm like, oh, Thunderbolts is bad. I don't really like Thunderbolts, but I don't feel like I need to make a video about it where I spend 20 minutes saying the same shit that hundreds of other people are saying online. So I don't really like talking about these types of movies anymore. I will prop up comic books all day long. If you come to me in the real world and you want to talk about comic book movies, I genuinely try to change the topic to talking about the comic inspiration. I think that's way more interesting and worth exploring. But this is Superman, and Superman is a cut above everything else. Regardless of his place in popular culture, Superman transcends comic books, he transcends film. It is iconography that anybody can see. You see that red S, you know what you're in for. So I had to talk about it. There's a long storied tradition of Superman on film. He's a very important character, and it's been a minute since he's been properly done on screen. So we're going to talk about it. I have talked about most of the other entries in this new DC universe of like this new DC Studios thing, right? I've watched Creature Commandos. I didn't review all of it. I think it's fine. That project, in my opinion, was already in development before it became the DC Studios thing. So it's whatever. They're just going to throw it into their new universe. The Penguin's fine. I don't love it as much as other people. I understand the awards for Colin Farrell in that thing. But to me, this is where it really starts. This is the new DC cinematic universe that we're playing with. It's the new DC universe. And to really talk about this, we do have to go back for a minute to a little thing called Black Adam. This is going to be really long-winded, so strap in. It's just freeform. We're just going off the cusp here. I don't even think I'm going to edit much of this. It's just going to be me putting up some pictures and some videos discussing this film that I saw and its cultural impact and where we are in terms of these films. So let's go back to Black Adam. Dwayne Johnson's been trying to get that movie made for a while. It finally comes out, and he promises to change the hierarchy of the DC universe. At that point in time, the DC universe was failing. It really was. So much bad stuff was happening. Like, the last shot of this universe is Patrick Wilson eating a bug in his cheeseburger. And that is just, that's the universe, man. That's what it was. It's just nothing is good and it's falling apart. Which I appreciate that too. We don't see a lot of universes completely fall apart. The last one was the Dark Universe, and that was only one movie. This one took like 12 movies to fall apart, but that's okay. Dwayne Johnson got Henry Cavill back for a cameo. And as this is happening, a lot of shifts are happening at Warner Bros. Discovery. They realize Marvel is still something we should try to emulate, so let's get our own Kevin Feige. So we're going to get James Gunn to do it. He directed maybe our most critically successful movie, which was Suicide Squad, or The Suicide Squad, I should say. Not the most financially successful one, but he's coming off of a really good Guardians trilogy. He made our characters likable, and Peacemaker was a big hit for HBO Max. James Gunn is a very big comic book nerd, and it makes perfect sense for him to, in this era, be the guy to relaunch a DC cinematic universe. I'm all for that. I have nothing against James Gunn as a creator. There's some personal stuff with him I find kind of irksome, but that's just behavioral and nothing that affects the projects he makes or what he is saying. it's really interesting to see like him talk about his own career and how far he's come. It's kind of a really good arc for a guy to make a Superman movie after making Guardians, because there's kind of an anger to him, and he's talked a lot about like his time with the Guardians movies and kind of like finding new love again and getting married and just like reinvigorating like his own happiness. I don't think the guy that made Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 can make Superman in 2025. You have to go through some stuff and become really self-assured with who you are. So I think it's really good that this is when he decided to make it. I know he was offered it before, but this is the perfect time for him to make that movie. It's really interesting. This is a very interesting movie. I would say for the most part, I am positive on it. There are a few things that it does where I get upset thinking about it. I don't think there's a single thing I find bad in this movie. But it's swinging for some fences, you know? And that's going to be hit or miss, which I'll say this right now. That is what this genre needed. This movie, I think more than anything, has reignited what this type of movie should be. And I'm talking about the comic book movie. It has been in a very slow spiral for a very long time, probably since Endgame. These movies don't do the best at the box office anymore. They're not the juggernauts they used to be. A couple of them will sneak through and do successful, but you need like a Spider-Man in there to really do that. Pop cultural cachet is just not the top thing anymore, and that is like for a million different reasons. The rise of social media, COVID destroying stuff, the movie theater experience not being what it used to be. You had a conclusion of Endgame, so of course the MCU is going to fall flat from that point, and now they are spiraling and trying to come up with new ideas to get old fans back in and get new fans interested in a different concept. I don't know if I'm going to review Fantastic Four First Steps yet. I don't think that movie looks particularly good, and teasing me with retro futuristic style just doesn't make up for the fact I don't trust the filmmaker or the screenwriter. But nonetheless, we're here to talk about Superman, a movie which reminded me what these can be. These used to be about characters and about a big city where there's things happening in it, and you're protecting innocent lives, and you stand for something good. There are comparisons being made to the Sam Raimi movies, which I can understand that. Raimi and Gunn have a similar energy of being brought up in low-budget horror, being huge nerds who are suddenly given the keys to the car and you can go drive it wherever you want. This movie is not as good as any of the Spider-Man trilogy from Raimi, but I think what it does right is capture a thing that's been missing from superhero content for a while, and that is a lack of cynicism and optimism being the persevering factor. Which is such a weird thing to say, but we have been in such a vacuum of things like The Boys and Invincible, and Thunderbolts even is a little like this, but that's a little more pessimistic a movie that tries to be hopeful and I think falls flat. Everything is dour, and it's about how people with power are terrible and they don't help people. And I just really hate that feeling. I know there's an audience for that, and a long time ago on this channel I talked about Jupiter Legacy, which was the Netflix original thing from, I can't even remember who was in it, Josh Duhamel, I think, where it's like, it tries to be like a hopeful Superman pastiche, and it failed miserably, and they canceled it 2 days after it aired. And I just remember sitting there, having liked the show, thinking, we have conditioned an audience not to want this. An audience that likes comic books now isn't in it for the hopeful optimism that comes from seeing people in costumes being good and generous. That itself is just an overarching cynicism and cultural decline of happiness and hope that's just been eroded through everything. Everything is bad now. And because of that, I literally think because of that, that's the time to make a very hopeful Superman movie. So you have a director who's suddenly running a studio. He has been through a lot of stuff himself and is like, I'm feeling better about myself and my worldview, I think is the perfect time to tell the story of the world's most hopeful and optimistic character. So I like that. I think that's a really cool thing. DC's cachet in terms of films has been really sloppy, even in a lot of other stuff. Like, I only think recently have they really stepped up their comic book game. They are still behind on the video game aspect of things, but they are just quietly telling you we can try stuff and we can be interesting again. And I like that. Like, the Absolute Universe is probably going to outlast the new Ultimate Universe at Marvel, so that's pretty exciting. These characters are finding new life. They're being strong again. We're out of the era of like the new 52 Superman where he's a little too stoic. Let's make him goofy again. Let's make him a silly guy. Let's just do it. And we are. And I think that's great. So this movie can only exist in this moment in time. I don't think this movie exists in 2015. I don't think it exists in 2005. I don't think it can exist in 2035. I think by the time we see sequels to this movie, if we do end up getting those, so much is going to be different in how we are telling these stories. And that is going to come from this being the shot in the arm it hopefully does to reinvigorate this genre. I could see this being, and just go with me for a second, okay? I could see this being what The Dark Knight was to big blockbusters in 2008, where it's like, it's realistic, it's grim, it's very like deep sounds, Hans Zimmer, everything's just shot in IMAX and is big. I think this could be colors and vibrancy and overstuff with other characters just populating the world. Populate these movies again. You know, I'm okay having 1 million characters in a movie if they are recognizable to the comic book and are just there. You can just have characters be there that we know are characters in the comic book and we don't have to make a big deal out of it. I feel like a lot of stuff that happens today, and television is really bad for this in terms of comic book stuff, is everybody has to become a character and have their big arc. But if we just throw Cat Grant in here, I'm fine with that. I don't need a whole arc where she goes on an adventure. You gave it to Jimmy, you gave it to Lois. If we have Perry White show up chomping on a cigar, that's all I need from that character. You don't need to do anything else with him, truly. And if you just want to have Lex Luthor just populate his room with other characters that are from the comic books, like his girlfriend Tess is going to play a big role. We're going to have the Engineer work for him. We're going to have a version of Ultraman work for him. That makes sense to me. So I just think not being afraid to talk about comic books is very important to the success of this movie. Comic books are never going to be bigger than these films. My audience was packed. I can guarantee you maybe 10 of the people in there, maybe 20 if I'm being generous, are actually people who buy comic books every week. I know that's not going to change. But if you can give me characters I know from the comic books acting like they're characters in the comic books and not being afraid to do that, that is something special. That is something to explore and be proud of. And that is what I think is the biggest thing for this movie and why I think it's pretty good. It's not afraid of itself. Not everything it does works, but it's not afraid to attempt to do that thing. Do you think in 2008 we could see a movie where a giant kaiju attacks a city and we're going to spend the time to figure out how to properly defeat it? It's not going to look like that. It's not going to behave like that. Things are just different now and we needed it to be different. This movie is not that long. It's like just over 2 hours, if even. It spends a lot of time to let us breathe. Like just to literally have moments where characters are sitting together, not saying anything, just thinking and being present. That's pretty rare to see. I kind of appreciate it for that. These movies are just so bloated these days. And to actually just spend time with these characters, get a sense of who they are. We don't have to do the origin. I really like that this movie starts with 3 centuries ago, metahumans showed up. 30 years ago, a ship crash landed and a baby was in it. That's a comic book. You have to treat this like a comic book. We are just moving the pictures and pages on a comic book. And this is the first movie in a very long time that really makes me feel like that. You can make the case for like the Spider-Verse stuff. Those are films I don't love as much as other people. But the last time I really felt like, oh man, we are capturing just reading an issue of Action Comics or just picking up a trade paperback at a convention that was like $5 and it's just whatever. I don't know. I can't think of an analogy that works for that. It's been a while. If we ever had it. Was it the Raimi trilogy? Is it that far back? Is it Iron Man 1 from 2008? I don't know. So that's something to be proud of. And I think it's really clear where James Gunn and the rest of the creative team over at DC Studios is taking their inspiration from. The last family that was working on these movies was clearly into Frank Miller. Now, if you have followed my channel, you probably heard me say I'm not the biggest fan of Frank Miller. I completely understand the importance of what he has done for the comic book genre, but the voice and the style has never really worked for me. I think because a lot of people misinterpret what he is doing, he's a lot more like Alan Moore than people realize, where he's saying, no, this can be bad and we shouldn't always follow this. Frank Miller is a very political writer and creator, and I think when Zack Snyder said, I want to do that style of Batman and that style of Superman, he missed the point of what those meant. Now, when it comes to James Gunn and what we've seen from this new universe so far, I'd even throw Creature Commandos in there a little bit. He's clearly taking inspiration from people like Grant Morrison and Jeff Loeb and Mark Waid and John Byrne, who are these more optimistic, idealistic versions of comic book writers. Mark Waid can't write like Frank Miller. Grant Morrison could, but it'd be a joke. John Byrne has his own cynicism to him, but this movie takes a lot from what John Byrne did to a lot of these characters. And Jeff Loeb he's a kind of a silly writer sometimes. So you get the inspirations. Like, these are the characters. These are the writers, I should say, not the characters. These are the writers that James Gunn knows and wants to talk about. And I get that. I still read a lot of Grant Morrison stuff. I still read a lot of Mark Waid stuff. Like, it's good to have these things out there and be popular and have people want to, like, write stories like this. This is such a strange movie. I'm very interested in the choices it is making, because it's going for it. Like, to be so politically minded in a huge summer blockbuster is kind of amazing. Yes, it is between fictional countries, and I don't fully believe that every single person involved was thinking Israel and Palestine when they were writing this movie. But it's right there in a huge multi-million-dollar film, the idea that this militaristic country wants to invade this land for political and financial gains, which is being backed by U.S. government officials. It's all there to explore. In a Superman movie in 2025, the fact that they were not afraid to have the American government look stupid, their rich tech billionaire look stupid, and this foreign government that's invading people look like assholes is pretty ballsy. Again, we're not using real names of real countries. They're a bunch of made-up bullshit. But it's impressive that they were doing it. I could easily see a world where James Gunn shot all of that, and Zaslav's like, I think we should cut out a lot of the stuff about this war in the Middle East. And you're like, okay. But they kept it in. It's a very key factor. It becomes a very important factor to how people perceive Superman. This is a very media-conscious movie, too. It's about how the news outlets and people can just be persuaded by the things they are seeing and they are reading. That is very pressing in today's times. It is a very political movie. Sorry if that is offensive to you. But Superman is an immigrant. It's the story of an immigrant. He is a person who is not from this country, who is just accepted largely by this culture, and that comes with its own baggage. And how do you really identify as a person of Earth or of America when that's not where you are from? That is a very important part of this movie as well. Another really interesting part of this movie I wasn't expecting was the idea of like a punk rock identity in a world that's cynical. It's very interesting. we do have Superman being like schlucky and goofy and kind of dumb in some of those like classic like gosh ways, but they want to modernize him up a bit. So he's gonna like say things that modern people would say, and I think that's really fun. It wants to give him like this punk rock attitude where he's like, hey, maybe being a good person is punk rock, because punk rock's not like about the anger, it's about saying things in this tone. And I think that's exactly what we are seeing from Superman in the way he does the interview of Lois, in the way he fights. It is this guy who is like, I'm going to do my best to not hurt people, but I'm still going to make this look fun and entertaining and cinematic. And I think that is just a perfect punk rock energy. I know that like doesn't really mean anything, but the film wants you to think like Clark is kind of like a cheesy guy. And there's nothing more cheesy than like, you know, mainstream punk rock where you're like, oh, these people sold out, but they're still beloved and stuff. That's the energy of this Superman. He could be a little, you know, lame and, you know, wet under the ears, but people still like him. Still gets the job done. And if that's not punk rock, what is? You know, just being talented and sweet, badass. That's my brand of music. So the score for this was good, but I really liked the choices we did for the soundtrack. They worked for me. They were really interesting. And not necessarily what you'd think of for Superman. Like, I don't picture Superman as being like a character in the real world where we're like playing songs that feature Iggy Pop on them. But it works. Isn't the worst thing that happens. And find something to say in that. So that's pretty cool. The score does reuse John Williams' theme. Might as well. I mean, it's the thing people know, and if you want to like get people thinking of the Christopher Reeve movie, you might as well use it. That's not bad. That's the tone you should be trying to go for, as opposed to doing something similar to Henry Cavill's Superman. So I like that they're trying to go for the more classic stuff in that capacity too. A lot of interesting choices though. I don't know. I don't know how to talk about these movies anymore. They just break my brain having to like sit down and discuss them. You notice we haven't talked a lot about the plot or the details of the movie. You can watch a million other reviewers or critics or read some other reviews where people break it down more. I just think this is the kind of thing we should see more in this genre, where the cinematography just looks like panels from a comic book. I don't know how anyone can really be mad at like some of the weird angles and like up close choices. Half of comic books are splash pages where like the person's head is in the forefront and the rest of their body is really small. Look at Todd McFarlane drawing Spider-Man. Like, it's just his feet in the front and he's like mangling all over the place and it like doesn't look realistic. So why do you need your superhero movie to look realistic when comic books are about like, here's your fist all the way out and the rest of you's back like this? Like, you don't need to make that look like it's in the real world. It's not. We don't have Metamorphos in the real world. We don't have Green Lanterns, and we don't have Superman solving our Middle Eastern conflicts. We just don't. So don't make it realistic to me. We're done with that era. The MCU is still trying to get out of that. That's what Fantastic Four's trying to do, but we don't need it anymore. Just go for broke, making it comic booky. Metropolis feels like it's not a real city. It feels like it's a futuristic city where everyone's in bright clothing and they just like look out their window and they're like, oh, Superman's here. I feel safe now. Oh, Green Lantern's eating cereal at this restaurant. That's normal. The fact that that's normal is really cool and very strong. And part of that is just the other approach to this movie that I really appreciate. We're not trying to do the MCU. We're doing Star Wars, if that makes sense. Star Wars has its episodic story, but it's largely about here's an event happening here, here's an event happening here. So we don't need to like tease like, oh, Darkseid is coming. Oh man, we have to fight Necron or something. Black Hand is summoning the Blackest Night. We don't have to do any of that. Lex Luthor hates that this illegal alien is more popular than him and is making him look like a jackass, so he wants to start a political coup so he become king of a foreign nation and use that to kill this guy he doesn't like because he's prettier than him. Meanwhile, Superman's trying to understand how political he can get, how involved in the world he can get, while starting a new relationship with Lois. These are just early John Byrne style stories These are just the idealistic version of these characters. So I can't be mad at this for being a comic book. It looks like a comic book. It is the same cinematographer that worked on The Flash, and that movie has some issues, but I don't think the camera work was the issues with that one. It's time and budgeting and just a whole lot of other shit. This movie, I will say, looks pretty good. There are moments where you can see the effects aren't perfect, but if you are just fully in the moment and not like, hanging a lantern on it, it works for me. I think because the coloring is so bright, I'm not annoyed by it looking rubbery sometimes. Whereas if it was going for a more matted feel, like say an Avengers movie, I'd be annoyed when it looks like shit. But it looks like we're filming on real locations. We're using practical effects and practical makeup for a lot of the characters. Smartest choice this movie did, in my opinion, was actual costumes for its characters. That is an actual suit that Anthony Carrigan is wearing for Metamorpho. Really weird part of the movie with him and like where we go with the Metamorpho stuff. But I can't be mad because that's just a random issue of a comic book. This whole movie plays out like a 5-issue arc of a comic book series that'd be called like Planet Watch, Superman Planet Watch, and you're just like, yeah, this would happen. Not against it. Not against it for doing that. If we can, in the same story, have a dedicated 7-minute sequence where Clark and Lois are having like an interview and he's getting mad because he doesn't understand that there's political ramifications for what he's doing, and then we can just go further down and like, this is a river that will atomize you and turn you into like a corporeal form of nothing and suck you into a black hole. You have to hold on to this baby and your dog while a man made of smoke pulls you to safety. If we could do both of those in the same movie and have it make sense, that's pretty cool. This movie isn't afraid to be a comic book, which has been the case for a bit, We'll see. I mean, Superman comic books have a couple of things. They have a bald prick. They have the Daily Planet. They have other superheroes in them that get inspired by Superman's positivity, which is what happens in this movie. They have the Kents. The most important mom and pa in comics. And then you just have a optimistic guy who thinks he can save the world. And when we live in a time where the world would rebel against that, it kind of makes it all the more interesting. So that's pretty cool. Some weird scripting issues, but that's to be expected. It's not going to be perfect. I don't hate any of the cast. I think everyone does good. I don't know if we'll shine a light on everybody, but David Cornsweet, he was just like born on the cob because he's so corny, man. I love it so much. He's saying gosh and golly, and that could be a bit of a jerk sometimes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Rachel Brosnahan, absolutely adore her. Have a massive crush on this version of Lois and every other version of Lois, of course. Doesn't have the like biggest emotional arc. It's kind of like, do I want to continue dating Clark? But that's enough for me. At this point, if you don't know anything about Superman, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, this isn't a movie aimed for kids where we have to tell everything again. It's aimed for all ages, so they're not going to reiterate. Oh, we got to have Lois figure out the secret. Oh, we got to do this thing and tell the origin. We don't do that. Get on board. That's Steve Lombard. Doesn't he look like him? It just goes for it. And I kind of appreciate it for that. Just let your audience be smart enough to get it. You don't have to spoon feed them everything happening. Sometimes the dialogue does that, but I think more often than not, it doesn't, which is kind of cool to see. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, really good casting. The guy who almost got to play Superman and Batman playing the biggest villain in the DC universe, that's really cool. I dig that a lot. Edie Agathji playing Mr. Terrific, he stole it for me, man. Like, that's what I want to see. That is a very distinctive voice for a character. And there's some other distinctive voices I'm not the biggest fan of. In particular, I don't really like Isabella Massard's version of Hawkgirl. She just feels like a child, and they feel like a more lived-in existence for her. Maybe we'll see that again. Mr. Terrific was fantastic, though. What if Shaft was the smartest guy you've ever met? That's what that performance was to me. Fucking rocked, man. That was so cool. He was incredible. Some might even say terrific. Really, really want to see more from him than anybody else, because you nailed it. That is how you do that. We talked about Anthony Carrigan. Interesting take on Metamorpho. Not against it. We'll get silly later with it. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. Well, you surprised me, Nathan. You actually managed to bring some ethos to Guy. Are you like the oldest superhero currently working? Is that what we're saying? Whatever. Curious to see how Lanterns is going to use him. I hope he gets a new outfit. And then you got like the supporting cast at the Daily Planet. Who's the kid that played Jimmy? Was it Skylar Gizmondo or something? Or Gizondo? Is that his name? Interesting use of Jimmy. Fantastic use of Jimmy. How do you modernize Jimmy? Well, the ladies love him and he doesn't understand why. Thumbs up, dude. That is perfect. That is perfect. And that goes into the relationship with Eve Teschmacher. I love this character. I think she is the most perfectly utilized character in this movie. That might be controversial because some people might be upset with how this character is written. I love it. You know what? Not every character needs to be brilliant or like really complex. Sometimes they're a little silly, a little ditzy, but maybe they actually have like some secret love that they need to experience and they get the happy ending. I think she's fantastic. Eve was the breakout character next to Mr. Terrific for me. I don't need to see more of her. I just love that she existed in here, was taking selfies at every turn, and was just in the best outfits. The costuming is great in this movie, by the way. Like, it looks really good. Really appreciate that so much. Wendell Pierce, I mean, I want to see more from that Perry White, man. Like, the fact that in a movie in 2025 that's for like aimed for all ages, which means children, lets a character chomp on a cigar. Look, he's not like smoking the hoagie, right? But he is chomping on it. It's in his mouth. We don't see him like inhale, but it's in his mouth. We're not going to see Ben Grimm have a cigar in the next couple weeks. I'll say that. That's a choice. What else we got? We have the engineer. Pretty cool. I mean, Authority, I guess. If they're even going to do Authority, I don't think they are, but whatever. Ultraman stuff, pretty predictable, but yeah, you gotta do it. You have to do it. There are certain beats you have to hit. Because, of course, somebody read John Byrne's Superman. So it's fine. The robots that are in the fortress, they're pretty cool. I also liked Michaela Hoover as Cat Grant. I think I just liked the ladies in this movie. They all were dressed really nice and just had some spunky attitudes, but different types of spunky. And I like that. Some people might say James Gunn can't write perfect women. And I don't think any of these women are perfectly written, but they're not bad. I kind of dig it. I kind of dig what we're doing there. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really like set up the universe at large either. It's more like, well, in the next adventure of Superman, Lex Luthor breaks out of prison and he summons the Parasite to help him. That kind of thing. I don't need like New Genesis exists over here. I don't care. We can get there eventually. Let's just establish these characters first. Let them exist in this world before we do other stuff. They're all really cool. It's such an interesting movie. So much to look at and talk about. Surprisingly political, surprisingly poignant, while still maintaining, like, you could read this comic book in 1975 and it would make sense. Or you could read it in 2004 and it would make sense. I really like that. I think that's kind of cool. But as a film, it could only exist right now when the genre is on its last legs, needing the kick in the leg to actually like revitalize itself, and people are tired of being cynical. It's the only time this movie can exist is right now, and there's a chance we may never see anything like it again. So I'm glad it exists in this capacity. I would love to see more from Corn Sweat in this role. I think we're going to see more from him. It seems to be doing pretty good box office wise, and I'm glad for that. This is... I wish it was enough for me to fully say, I'm back in. I'm all in on superhero movies again. I can't wait to talk about them and discuss like Lanterns every week with you. We might talk Lanterns every week depending on how I feel about it, because Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, oh, I love that casting. I think that's brilliant. And Aaron Pierre is just a great actor. But we'll see what happens here. I'm very excited for Supergirl. That's a pretty good comic book run. I hope they can adapt it properly. It's going to be very different than this movie. And Clayface is just going to be insane. That's a really cool idea. I know some people are really confused like why this is the slate. But I love that. You know what? $40 million to a pretty good horror director to be like, make the substance for like the male ego driving you crazy because you're no longer beautiful. I think that's awesome. And a Supergirl movie. We haven't had one of those since the 80s, so let's do it again. I think that's great. So many great things in here. Like, this could work. Could work. I hope it does. I hope we get somewhere with it. But I don't fully know if we will. Like I said, I wish this convinced me, like, we're back in. DCU talk every day. Here comes everything. News breakdowns, trailer breakdowns for the MCU and all that stuff. But I'm not there. This movie made me feel good. I laughed a lot. I smiled a lot. I found characters compelling that I didn't think I would. And I left feeling really good about the future of Superman as a character. I think this is a perfect contrast to the Henry Cavill stuff, which was a little more aggressive and what is man when you are a god? And I hate that stuff for Superman. But this is the only reason I am who I am is because I have good parents who love me and I know what happiness is. And, you know, sometimes being human's the best thing you can be. And that inspires every single goddamn character in this movie to do the right thing. Aside from the genocidal assholes that are running a company trying to take over a poorer country. So I like it. It's good. I'm not blown away as everybody is. There's enough punk rock stuff in there where I'm like, hell yeah, dude, that's going to hold up well for someone like me who likes that music. And it's just going to go, like, is it the best Superman movie? Probably not. But we've had a lot worse. A lot worse. The best DC movie? No. But we've had a lot worse. A lot worse. Is it the best comic book movie this year? Yes. But Red Sonja is coming out in August, so maybe it'll be that one. Look, I don't know. When a Captain America movie and a Thunderbolts movie don't do it for you, Superman's what you need to get things back on track. If you get him right, there's a future for everyone. And it's been a goddamn minute since we got Superman right. So this is it, man. Corn Sweat, I think you are in for a very fascinating career. You could get typecast just playing Superman. I like to see you do other stuff, though. We'll see. All right. We went for like 40 minutes almost talking about the Superman movie. It's good. It's pretty good. No, if you told me you didn't like it, though, I get that. It's very jarring the way some stuff looks. And a huge element of this movie is a dog. You know, if you don't like dogs, then good luck. Are there crypto plushies available? I know there's baby Joey toys, but is there crypto, like a big crypto plushie you could buy? Or is there a cape you can get for your actual dog? That seems like a missed opportunity. Oh, it's just nice when a comic book movie feels like it likes comic books and wants to talk about them. I don't know. I'm good. Like the summer of Superman, it's here. It's going to stay. It's doing better than I thought, which is good because Jurassic World does not deserve any love. And I don't think the Smurfs is going to break even. So, I don't know. Should we come back to talk about Fantastic Four? We'll see. Until then, though, I am going to give Superman a 7 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this video. I don't know if it's a review. It's more just me rambling about this movie I find fascinating. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, though. We talk about movies every week. We talk about comics every week. We talk about TV when the time comes. Weekly reviews for the next season of Strange New Worlds is coming up if you're interested in that. But if not, I understand. We'll talk about other comic book stuff, though. Anyways, have fun, stay safe, and good luck.